Right, here we go. Right, good evening, everybody. It's myself and Dino here again. Um, we're just going to do a little chat for the next half an hour or so. A little bit about the wee chat that we had last Friday with this witness that we met at Buchanan bus station. What was his name again, Dino? Do you remember?
Stevie, Stephen.
Stevie.
Mhm.
Stevie. Right. I've not watched the video yet, but anyway, Stevie. Okay. Um, Funny enough, I was back up at Buchanan station on the Sunday around about 3:30 to go to the Royal Concert Hall for this Joe Boy talk.
Mhm.
And lo and behold, they were back again. Different people, same location, and again speaking to nobody apart from each other. Just a strange way. It was really cold as well, and just a
Yeah.
strange way to pass your time. Um, on the Friday, we had the we met them on Friday. On the Saturday morning, I was going into Dumfries, and I live in a wee village outside Dumfries. And as we were just leaving our house, where I live, um, to get up to where our houses are, there's no pavement. Don't know why. They made in the days before there was horses. So horse and carriage, before cars and whatnot, getting confused. And there was a woman coming down on a motor scooter. And to get up to where we live, you have to go upstairs. And thinking, I straight away thought, well, she's not local. Because one thing, she wouldn't be on the road right now and what she's trying to do. And as we started sort of driving away, they were like three doors away from my door. My wife said to me, "There's the Jehovah's Witnesses." So there you go. This is the first time. Unfortunately, I missed out on it. A couple did come to my door a few years back, but it's the first time I've known the witnesses to come out this way. And it might have been something to do with the fact that I'd mentioned to the guy Jim I'd spoken to Dumfries a few weeks back, just saying, "You never come round to my village." So I don't know if that maybe inspired them. And as we drove out, you would not thought these guys were Jehovah's Witnesses because of the way they were addressed. The way they were
Mhm.
dressed was like in more casual clothing, not you, and not that we would have allowed to go. We had to go out with a suit, didn't we? And a nice mac, it was freezing. But these guys were wearing casual clothing to like, keep them warm. You wouldn't have thought automatically they were Jehovah's Witnesses, but they were, and they were all very old. There wasn't anybody like a young couple with their, a young couple like, or a couple of boys, or a couple of girls. It was mostly people in their 60s out doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering whether that's, I don't know, but whether that means anything or whether it's in the congregation. And of course, my wife said to me, "You're not stopping." So I never did get to chat to them. But when I came back, there was, because obviously they don't take notes if you're not home anymore, I don't think. So they left a purpose, a little leaflet and a letter. And the letter was massively short, and it actually came in with a very odd thing about saying, "Do you think violence is the answer to our problems?" I'm thinking, it was a very odd way to be the letter. The letter is about, do you think violence? I'm thinking, well, I live in a wee village. We don't get any violence here. There's not much goes on in Dumfries, to be fair. Is it trying to think that to forget my problems, I want to beat up my racist neighbour below me? I've thought about it, but it's just very odd way, instead of just going in with saying an important message, good news, blah blah blah, and they just went in. Do you think the violence is the answer to the problems that we see today? I'm thinking, very, very odd. And a wee leaflet as well. And nothing in it. And it was all to do with guiding people to jw.org.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Right. Now, following up on the wee chat that we had with this guy on Friday, because the lassie never said anything. And for those who've heard it, you'll probably not hear us say one word. She never said one word, apart from this guy's wife who eventually came in when it was the old, "Oh, is it that time already?"
To
And
go.
she, yeah, so yeah, it's time to change shifts and us to beat it and do a sharp exit. But what I thought about this, and the only thing I'm going to say about this, and you can have your own thoughts, is that I found it extraordinary that he again was wanting to straight away. I think he was going to leave us a card. You don't see it in the video. He had in a wee thing, didn't he? A wee bunch of cards. And those cards, I think, were all to do with trying to guide people to jw.org. And he says, oh, and we were giving him so many different questions that he really didn't have any answers to. And it was, to me, a type of blind faith. And I found it really odd that he wasn't able to support his own organization's viewpoints from the Bible. He wanted us to do our own research. It's a really odd. At one point I said to him, I don't know if the video picked up, it says, let's just pretend the internet doesn't exist. Let's just, you're in front of me right now. You answer my questions. Listen, don't guide me to that. I want you to, and I don't think he could have. And I think this is the way that this organization is going. That he, to me, I don't know what you thought, but he gave the impression to me that he'd been in the organization for maybe 50 years because he was referenced 25, right?
Yeah.
But to me, he was acting in a manner of somebody who's a Bible student, a Bible study, going on the doors for the very first time. I would have to say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to those questions. I've only just started in the organization.
Yeah.
He didn't come over to me as somebody who knew his stuff when he should do. He should be easily be able to go and reference, well, actually pull out the physical book, but reference the scriptures. It was all about trying to guide us to this website. And what I thought was, based on a chat I'd had with a guy called Peter who listens to our stuff, the organization is just sending people out there who are less educated on the beliefs they're supposed to have and can't support the beliefs they have. But worse about it is that when we go back in time, if we were chatting to people on the doors, and that person's behind the doors, and we're saying, well, the Bible says this, the Bible says this, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. How could that person behind the door then go and research what we said? They'd take on face value what we said based on how genuine we were as people, going to the Bible and thinking, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ says this. This person seems very genuine. I've got no reason to believe he's not telling the truth. And there's another book that he wants me to look at, which is reinforcing his viewpoint. I don't have an additional source of material to go to. You could go to the library and maybe they had one copy of 30 Year of Watchtower Slave or another copy of Crisis of Conscience. But if you wanted to research this organization and just come to your door and said, we have the truth, you have to listen to us, where would you go? But now, which is why I think so many more people came into the organization back then, because you weren't able to go, right, okay, I'll take this away, I'm going to do my own research. Now, even people who are in we're in our 60s. Even people in the 60s and downwards are now so clued up to go and do their research. When you get somebody approaches you in the street, if they dare do that, to come to your door, nobody believes on face value that anything that anybody says anymore because of the way we've been brought up now, realizing that there's a lot of stuff on the internet is an absolute lot of shite. And so people are then going to go, right, this organization said this to me, or this guy said to me, I'm going to just research this organization, Jehovah's Witnesses. And when they start doing that, they're going to go, oh my God, oh my God. And so then if there is a return visit or a Bible study start, that person's going to go literally to the guy coming to their door, I've got a whole load of questions here. And I want you to answer them for me because I've read this. And at that point, you can imagine how that Bible study is going to get very quickly going to deteriorate because that person's going to go, can I just guide you? No. I want you to explain. You're coming here telling me that what I believe is wrong, what's right. I've got all these things, I've done research saying that what you say is wrong. I need you to explain it in a convincing way to me that you have the truth. And I think this is where this is now getting unstuck. because people now are more educated now than they used to be
Yeah.
when we used to chant doors. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on
I mean, it is very lazy. They don't seem to be training ministers now the way
it.
that we were. We were trained to be ministers, trained to go out and be able to form a reasonable extemporaneous argument on a doorstep. We, as you say, there was no internet to go to and say, "Oh, go look at this website." Yeah, it's very lazy. I don't like the way that they don't want to engage really in an argument. They don't want to um, get into questions with you. As you say, they'll just so go look at the website and the answers will be there. But I often say to them, yeah, but I've looked at the website, but you read the material and then you get other questions in your mind. You can't ask the website questions.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm asking you, a person.
Mhm.
Um, and I asked them so that I want to see whether you can explain it. Because if you can't explain it, then you don't
Yeah.
really understand it if you can't explain it. But few of them want to tackle that. It's interesting you're saying there that it is a kind of dumbing down of the ministry. But when you think about the history of the witnesses, when they first started off, they had people wearing these sandwich boards or carrying placards, and they would march down the street. And basically, they were just billboards.
Mhm.
You know, they weren't ministers at that point. Um, but then it became a kind of an evangelistic organization. And as I say, that we had the theocratic ministry school. I don't know whether that still runs as such today. I think you get the service meeting, the theocratic ministry school that kind of wound down basically. Um, but it seems that they've reverted back to the earlier history where they're basically just billboards in the street. I'd thought about saying to them, though, whenever conversations don't always go the way you plan, but I was going to say to them, with that cart that's there, and if they're not really going to speak to people, they're just going to stand there like mannequins. Would it not be better hiring billboards, spend some of the money just putting posters up, or jw.org for free Bible education? Because the people standing there, it's not really making, people are just walking past them, you know. You'd be as well just to have billboards, posters and things dotted on the side of a bus or something, and put some of the money into that rather than all that money going into producing videos that only the ones that are in the congregation are going to watch. You know, the idea surely is to be a public ministry. So why not spend more of the money on catching the public's eye? Um, and I think they're standing in the street. Okay, people see them, but it's at the stage where they're just ignoring them, they're walking past them. But first thing I wanted to really say about Stevie, and as you pointed out in the conversation and on the video, he made a point of saying what a nice guy he was. And it was nice to speak to. It was nice to speak to someone that didn't get all upset and hot and bothered.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so he's a pleasant enough chap. I
Yeah.
hope to meet him there again and maybe continue another
Yeah.
discussion with him. Um, but again, I found that he wouldn't be pinned down to any particular subject.
No.
He was, again, as they all do, they hop from one thing to another. But I would say I give him credit where when we were speaking about, I pulled him up about the 607 date that he dropped in. He said dates in history,
Yeah.
and he said 539, and then he dropped in 607. So I pulled him up about that, and when he realised that I knew a bit about it,
Yeah.
he says, "Oh no, I don't know enough about that." So
Yeah.
at least he didn't
Yeah.
try to kind of argue a point when he really knew nothing about it, um, and he admitted that. Um, and he said he couldn't really argue, but that in itself was an indictment because, as you said, he's been in the witnesses since 75-ish. The way he
Mm.
was talking, he's been there some time. He
Yeah.
should be able to know that subject, um, and be able to argue. And I think you put it to him about 1914, and I did as well. What was so important about 1914? And all he could say was, "Oh well, if you look at the Bible and it kind of indicates dates, and you arrive at
Right.
1914, and you go, wow, that's some explanation of how you get to 1914." Um, they they're not they're not comfortable talking about what is actually their fundamental doctrine. They don't really want to get onto the subject. And I thought it was really interesting. You'd asked them about 1914, about the generation that was alive then, and you'd asked them had they
Yes.
passed away. And he said
Mm.
something to the effect of that generation has gone. Those people are no longer alive, but the people they knew and their families are still here. As if he was trying to say that the kind of time period is extended because the people that knew them and the fact. I thought that's not the teaching
Yeah.
at all. You
Mm.
know, people that knew that generation um, are mostly dead as well, and their immediate families you would expect to be, of more or less the same generation. So he didn't even try to go and explain the overlapping second
Mm.
group, but instead just says, "Oh, people that knew them," and it makes me realize again the majority of these people standing there don't even know
Don't
their
know.
own dogma now. I
Yeah.
think that the society has changed it and made it so convoluted and so illogical. They don't really understand it, and they're not prepared or able to justify it. So that really, I think, is an indictment um, of them. Um, Plus, I mean, I hadn't really meant to go into this, but just the thing that came to my mind to start the discussion, I'd asked them about, are you millenarians or careless? And again, they just have no idea about these terms. I
Mm.
think, well, that's the 1,000-year reign. That's one of your core doctrines. Um, and I wish I'd asked them. It kind of occurred to me later because you said to him, when does that all start? When does it all end? And he spoke
Mm.
about 1914, but I thought it occurred to me, well, if they're millenarians, if they believe in the 1,000-year reign, and they're saying that Jesus came back invisibly in 1914, began ruling in the heavens, then once he starts ruling in the heavens, is that not the start of the 1,000-year reign if he's ruling?
Mm.
So surely the 1,000-year reign has already begun if he's ruling in heaven
Mm.
from 1914. But which was probably the original thought of Russell,
Oh.
that when the parousia arrives, that's the start of the reign. Of course, it didn't happen that way. But when you think about it, if they're arguing that he's ruling in heaven from 1914, then he's ruling.
Mm.
So, the 1,000-year reign should have started
Yeah.
from 1914, but that's so it doesn't follow. It's not logical what they're actually trying to prove. They're clinging on to this 1914 now with their fingertips, and I think eventually it will go. They will have to um, basically drop it or have a new light on the significance of it. I think the last thing I remember when we were there was that they were talking about the passage in Daniel 12 where it says that Michael stands up. So I think they said that although Jesus is ruling, he hasn't stood up. But that makes no sense. he's either ruling or he's not from 1914, you know. So that's a question for the next time we meet the Carters. How can he be ruling, but the 1,000-year reign not already have begun? It's either it has begun or he isn't yet ruling, and therefore
Mm.
1914 is not the start of his reign. Yeah, and the other thing was, as I said to you, it was just when I was coming to the pub where we met, I'd passed some of the carts and I saw the carts with that um,
Yes.
as the main heading, coping with rising
Yeah.
prices. And I thought to
Right.
myself, coping with rising prices? Because
Yeah.
usually it says free Bible study or something
Mm.
really biblical. Um, and I wish now that I'd thought when I first started speaking to him, I'd meant to say, I use from Citizens Advice or, Martin Lewis's money
Right.
advice,
Yeah.
because I thought you're believing that this system is about to end imminently.
Mm.
So should your cart not be saying the end is nigh, or
Yes.
you know, but coping with rising prices, okay, it's a practical thing, and people
Yeah.
maybe are thinking in terms of the economy as such, but that's a kind of political issue. Um, and although it is a sort of practical advice, and it is a reasonable practical advice that's in it, but I don't think that that is what
Mm.
the carts should be about.
Mm.
Are you
Yeah.
preaching the gospel? Are you saying that this system's about to end and
Oh.
people are going to lose their lives? Or, are you amateur citizens' advice, basically? Um, it's interesting that some of the advice in here, some of it's practical, some of it is really dumb. It's so obvious. Like, don't spend too much money and, you know, um, you know, turn your heating off when it's not cold outside. It's really general stuff, but it's just basically fishing. It's bait,
Yeah.
trying to draw people in on one thing to then hit them with the gospel. Just be upfront about it. That's what
Mm.
I would say. And so I'm quite surprised and quite astonished actually. Um, if they believe this is so late in the day that they're not being so obvious about what they're trying to do, basically.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I think that because that's the biggest problem I have with the Carters is, and I say this, although fun enough, I didn't say it when we were there on Friday. Just saying that these people walking past them, if Armageddon does come tomorrow, and in their mindset, Armageddon may come tomorrow, that they've made no effort that day with all these people walking past them to actually warn them of the great danger that everybody's in unless they're a baptized Jehovah's Witness. And instead, as you say, they're doing a magazine about, how to cope with increased prices. I think it should be, it literally is like, just cut to the chase. Just actually say, this is what we believe. It doesn't matter. Coping with rising prices. If Armageddon comes tomorrow, it doesn't matter about your heating. It doesn't matter that bananas are gone,
yeah,
or your Thanksgiving meal at Waitrose was more expensive under Biden than the Trump using lesser items. It doesn't matter about that because at the end of the day, it's your life. Your life is at risk here, not whether you've got enough money for your Netflix subscription or to buy a beer. And that's what I don't understand with the Carters, that they full well know that these people walking past them are probably going to die if I'm going to go tomorrow, but they're not proclaiming, this warning message. There is no warning message. It's up to turn down your thermostat
yeah,
so you can afford to buy, a cake or a beer or whatever it is, very odd.
I also found as I say, we both liked Stevie. He was a nice, friendly chap, which was good. But again, I always find it really strange when the other person, whoever it is, whether it's brother bouncer or sister bouncer, but
Yeah,
suddenly appears at your
yeah,
shoulder and just
yeah,
kind of just stands there.
yeah,
Um, it turns out it was his wife. Um, and then they come into a conversation that they weren't part of. And then she started speaking to you about something to do about like how they can give good advice and help people um, cope with problems and things like that. And I was thinking to myself, if you're going to jump into a conversation, find out what the conversation is, find out what the question is. Um, who was her husband speaking to? What were they speaking about? Maybe I can offer something to that question or that issue. But she kind of just came out with this, well, aren't we lovely people? And we're so helpful and we can help people with their problems and advice and
yeah,
such like that. And
yeah.
again, I was just thinking, but there's nothing distinctive about that.
No,
You know, there's
because what
any
funny. See, when she said that, oh, why the Bible can offer, and I then said to her, I said, well, hold on a second, basically countering that, saying, well, not really, because how many Jehovah's Witnesses died in COVID? Because I just thought, well, no, I'm not taking this nonsense. I just thought straight away, hold on a second, you can't offer. There's no assistance if you can't save your own lives when a pandemic hits the earth. Because she says, oh, Jehovah will always protect us. Oh, that's what she said. Jehovah's protecting him. Well, he didn't COVID, did he? All of a sudden, his hand to help had been withdrawn, and he allowed people to die of COVID. That's his hand he died. And then she then came back to me and says, that's because remember, this whole world, who controls it? And you're thinking, so hold on a second. If Satan controls this whole world, how is it you can therefore say, well, that's why we died at COVID? But he will help you if all of a sudden, you're feeling a little bit cold with your hands, and then you go to a door and somebody says, oh, my husband's just died, and your mitts are the same sizes as his. It's just very odd to try and look for the slimmest actions in this world where allegedly Jehovah will help the witnesses, but on the real big issues like living or dying, he doesn't give a shit.
I think I think sometimes the what she was coming away with was like they're reassuring themselves of their position, their beliefs. When people like ourselves stop and confront them,
Yeah,
um, the I think they've got to kind of try and it's almost like they're trying to reconvince themselves that they're in the
yeah,
right. Um, you know, but that's sort of the good thing about confronting them, is trying to make them think, trying to make them realize, are they just going along with what the organization's telling them, or do they really understand it and believe it, and can explain it? And so far as that meeting showed, when you really get down to the brass tacks of subjects, they they really struggle to explain things, um, or get a Bible out and actually kind of stand and go through scriptures with you. But
yeah.
it's interesting. We'll go and see the next time we're there. We'll see if we can land lucky and catch him again. He was a nice chap to speak
He,
to.
he
But
was.
that
He was.
spot seems to be. Um, they must take it in turns, the different congregations, because um, we'll not say where he was from, on the internet, but he was from out with Glasgow, and I've
Yeah,
spoken to a few in the city centre that have come from further afield. So it seems to be a spot that's different congregations must get a day and a time that they can work that spot.
yeah,
So it's quite good for seeing people from all different areas. Um, but but as I say, it's very difficult to pin them down because as soon as they think they're struggling with a subject, they'll just hop onto something else and they'll not stay in the same spot because they don't want to be pinned down. But we'll keep trying. You never know. But it was
Well,
good. It was
the
interesting.
yeah. Well, as we've said before, when we speak to these people, we do it to reassure that ourselves that they don't have the truth. If they did have the truth, I would love them to reassure me that they have it and convince me that I've made a mistake and you've made a mistake and that we should go back to them. But nothing, and I've spoken as you've done yourself. Nothing when I've ever spoken, and it's not by reading things. It's by somebody in the flesh having a certain belief, convincing you in their with their utmost honesty and also their own education on what they believe to then to really then change your mind and your heart. That's not happened. Every single time I speak to the people, I just come away saying, you just don't have the truth.
Yeah,
You may
you don't
think
have
it,
it.
you don't have it. You've convinced yourselves you have it. You label your own religious organized teachings as the truth, but they don't have the truth. Sometimes I wish they did have the truth. If they did have the truth, then it would certainly make our lives a lot easier because we'd know what to believe in, and we wouldn't, still be, wondering what's it all about. But they don't have the truth, and I think they're even further from any semblance of the truth that they had when we were there. At least when we were there, I think we could at least give a good account of
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah,
And if we couldn't get an answer, we'd go, "Oh, I need to go away and look that up." But at least I think we could use the Bible, but now I think these people are getting so used to not even using the very book that allegedly their beliefs comes from. It's very, very worrying that they are probably the most uneducated Jehovah's Witnesses since probably maybe ever, maybe in the past 75 years, most uneducated Jehovah's Witnesses. And I just do not see them. I don't know if you said before that the growth is static. I think it's just, if it's just coming from through their family that the increase is going. I just don't see how anybody that they could even meet in the street because they don't chat to people, but how anybody then when we've got this, so we can just go, hold on a second, hold on. I just don't see how that's going to convince anybody. It doesn't matter how genuine, because that guy we spoke to was very genuine.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, you need to be able to then say, yeah, I know you're saying this, but I need to reassure myself that I'm going to believe this, not just in how assured you are that you have and you've decided that's for you and you're not going to change now because you've been so long in this organization. Where else are you going to go?
yeah. I mean, the thing with the 1914 and 607, etc., most people in the street aren't going to ask about that because they'll not know
No,
about it. But
no, that's
they
right.
should know it. So when
Yeah.
someone approaches them and say, "Oh, right, justifies your date of
Mm.
607 for the fall of Jerusalem, destruction of Jerusalem," they then should be able to justify that. They should have that knowledge available, um, and prove it to you there and then.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but they just, I say, it's lazy. It's
Hi.
they don't seem to feel that they've got the need to prove. It's just a
No.
case of, believe in the paradise earth and this lovely organization, and that's enough. Um, but it's not enough for a reasonable mind, you know.
Now, and I think now that people now aren't as well. I think maybe in our time, I think they're more gullible. I just think that they had a small belief on that they understood very. They didn't read. If you spoke to a Protestant or a Roman Catholic, they didn't know what a Bible was. They wouldn't be able to look at it really. But now I think people are more can just go on and like you've done before, go and look at different versions, look at different translations. I think we are at an age now that people, I think it's a hard task to convert someone to being Jehovah's Witnesses, but the basics is at least know your own beliefs and be able to explain them to yourself first and then somebody else.
It's interesting what I've been studying this week. We've been looking at the sort of a decline of Church of Scotland attendance in the previous centuries, about revivalist movements within the Church of Scotland, but they experience the same problems. Means that people, the Church of Scotland back in the 50s actually tried to do, I never knew this before, but they actually tried to get the membership to do door-to-door work. They tried the Church of Scotland in the 1950s. There was a movement called the Tell Scotland movement, and they wanted to train the laity to actually go out and do street witnessing and door-to-door witnessing, and basically it failed because nobody wanted to do it, and nobody wanted to kind of
get into that.
Because that is our time, right?
We've got 120 seconds. Just to say that if you're going to watch the Scotland match, anybody going to watch it can be a bit late, but Dino, you've got to see the Scott McTominay overhead goal that he scored to put Scotland ahead. So go on to this and watch it. You'll see it. It's an absolute belter, and I still can't understand why Manchester United let him go. Honestly, what a goal that was. So Scotland are 1-up at the moment. Anyway,
I'm hoping McTominay is going to apply for Italian citizenship. I'm praying for that.
Yeah. It's honestly what a great player he is. Honestly, you've got to see this. Honestly, I watched it before. I was like trying to listen to it, going, I literally, it's a case of I don't believe I've just seen that. Anyway, you're watching now, right? Anyway, but it's just time. We've got just about 60 seconds to say goodbye. Thanks again, Dino. I won't be here next week. I'm going away to England on holiday. To sunny England, so I'll maybe see you all in 2 weeks' time, and hopefully me and Dina can catch up with the Carters in Glasgow sometime before Christmas, a few Christmas drinks, and get to chat out some. Anyway, goodbye everybody. Thanks for your time.
Take care all. Bye for now.
Bye.